Welcome to the first episode of The Verdict. We are going to be doing an exclusive interview with Charlie Simpson, who is a former Member of Youth Parliament for Ashfield, who was elected um, with an unprecedented mandate. He then resigned on Twitter and he received 1 million views and support from many people during his campaign. He now thinks the Youth Parliament should be abolished. He's been involved with people such as Lee Anderson and Tommy Robinson, and we'll be talking about his past politics and how he got into politics. Rumour has it he used to be a Corbynite. We'll be talking about that and a lot more, and some of his recent comments, which have stirred a lot of hatred towards Charlie, and we'll be giving him some quick fire questions. So, Charlie, I'm going to get you on right now. Welcome to The Verdict.
It's an absolute pleasure, I'd say, to be on here. It's great to always see young people getting involved in politics, and obviously, as I say, this seems to be a journalism, route. And I believe, we are now the media. You can't trust the mainstream media. So I, respect the opportunity to be given a platform by the Verdict, despite your personal views on me, Jack. I'm always here to have a good conversation. So, but yes, no, it's an absolute pleasure. Yeah, shoot ahead.
Brilliant. And I think that's a point I always make. You have to speak to people you disagree with to argue your
Mm,
point,
yeah.
which is good. Let's start off before we get into you getting into politics and whatnot. You've recently been accused of being a fraud, not once, but twice. An account on X called Zombie Pop, who has 366 followers, said that you have frauded people out of their own money because they chose to support your work, and that's both on PayPal and Buy Me a Coffee. Now, obviously, those allegations are probably baseless. What do you have to say about it?
Well, I think that's, that one word there, baseless, sums it up perfectly. I mean, I am what you get on the tin. I'm a outspoken young person who stands up for what I believe is right. And if people choose to donate on that basis, then there's no scamming or frauding going on. I've lost followers for my beliefs and I've gained some as well. So I believe these paid accounts by the likes of Antifa and these controlled oppositions, or whatever you want to call it, they're being paid to make lies about me. So at the end of the day, I don't blame them because they've got to do the job. But no, I'm not a fraud. I'm not a scammer. You get what you get on the tin, and I'm a true and honest person.
Yeah, and I think if it is people's prerogative if they want to choose to donate to someone, just like if you wanted to donate to someone. I think it's got a lot to do with age, but we'll move off from that. So, Charlie, you were elected to the Youth Parliament. I believe it was 2024, early
Yeah,
2024. Yeah.
yeah.
And uh, during your campaign to be elected, you were endorsed by on a cross-party basis, if I understand that correctly, especially receiving a lot of coverage by Lee Anderson, who is used to be the MP for the area. I know you've moved to Whitby now, which is filled with Labour. However, do you think that the support of Lee Anderson did play a big part in you getting elected to the UK Youth Parliament?
I mean, endorsements are always grateful and they're always helpful, and we can't lie. Endorsements do get people elected. We saw in the United States with America. We saw in the United States of America with Elon Musk how money and endorsements and support goes a long way. So, of course, it possibly pushed me over the line, but there was no line to be pushed over. The second I announced my candidacy, I won that by a landslide. The first sentence I said won me by a landslide because I was speaking up for the young people. So if I got no endorsements off of Lee Anderson, I would have still won at the end of the day. And even after I resigned, there was calls on Twitter for the youth parliament to be defunded. And we'll get onto that later, as I know you've already said you want to ask a question on that. But I think it's pretty clear that we do need to abolish the youth parliament.
Well, coming on to that, you want to abolish the youth parliament, you want the government to take action. And I think it's important to say the Department for Culture, Media and Sport funds the UK
Yep.
Youth Parliament and some of the projects, it has been handed about. I know firsthand it was at the British Youth Council under the Conservatives. It then went to the National Youth Agency, which are probably one of the wokest youth organisations out there. And
No,
one of the point,
I've had some interactions with them. Trust me now, Jack. Trust
yeah,
me.
the point that you've made in the past is that you went on GB News and you were speaking to I think was it on
Stephen
the
Gibson.
breakfast.
Yeah,
I
Stephen
vividly
Gibson.
recall it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you were talking about a really important campaign, free school meals, which has now been endorsed by the government. I'm not too sure if it was because you're on GB News or not, but nevertheless,
Most
it's government policy now. But on there, you stirred up a lot in the youth parliament, and I know firsthand because I spoke to MYPs at the time. You said that you endorsed Reform UK, which
Yep.
technically under the rules of the UK Youth Parliament, you're not allowed to endorse a party. However, when it's the other way and people are out canvassing for Labour and putting it on their walk Instagrams with their pronouns in the bio, they're allowed to get away with it. So is that probably one of your reasons why you wanted to abolish it? It's not what it says on the tin.
No, I mean, well, yes, you have kind of summed it up. I mean, I believe it's a house of wokery. For Christ's sakes, you say a couple of sentences and you get clapped on by your peers. How disrespectful in the House of Commons, for
Yeah.
Christ's sakes, to be clapping. I mean, it's I mean, there's no debate. It's not a parliament. It's a bunch of kids who want to have a bit of fun, who enjoy it. But then, if you're a bit right wing or you've got some controversial opinions, you're kicked out. It's you know what they might as well name it the House for the Left. It's not a parliament. It's just people with the go, and they spread the little woke opinions about how they can all be transgender and all this nonsense. And I mean, trust me, I'm not going to get in it too much. I'll just rant. But it should be abolished. The government should not be funding a, well, whatever you want to call it, a playhouse. You know, stupid, wokery, get it gone. We need Doge.
Told you, we need to stop the DEI within the
Yeah,
UK
get
Youth
them gone.
Parliament, I think. Absolutely. Now I'm going to read out a reply to one of your tweets, and viewers watching need to guess what this tweet was about. We'll come on to it, but they need to guess whilst I'm reading them out. And in fact, I think I've got a few more. So we'll start off with the nicer ones. I'm not fucking dying for Israel. Are you mental? Shut up, little knobhead. Go on then, get over there then. We expect to see you on the front line, fatty. And the big one. Young fat virgin demands British soldiers be sacrificed for Jews and Muslims. Fuck off, Charlie. Now, I
They were the
think
nice
that
ones. They were the
they were
nice
the
ones.
nice ones. The
Fair
last
enough.
tweet kind of gave it away, so we'll move on to it now. This is the tweet that you posted yesterday whilst you were hosting your Simpson Report show, and you had a panel of guests on talking
Yeah.
about it. Uh, um, first of all, can you respond to some of those replies to your tweets? And I know there's an organisation which have publicised it and made a video about it, but try and justify your tweet, sorry, and reply to these replies.
So yeah, I mean, of course, I will respond to the tweet, and it was a tweet which was made out of anger, at the time, which I still do agree with the tweet. Like, for Christ's sakes, it wasn't even, that long ago which I made the tweet. But the point I'm trying to say is Iran it's an Islamist regime, and they are coming very close, or if not already, they will have nuclear weapons. Now, my point to you is, to the people watching, would you want a country, a dictatorship, which is so mental, which we can prevent by blowing them up, might I add, to have access to nuclear weapons? Quite literally, they are mental and they are dangerous. And if it was up to me, I mean, I don't want to send troops on the front line. I will make this very clear. I don't want British soldiers to be dying. But it's not hard to impose sanctions and send support to neighboring countries and stand united with Israel on this topic. I mean, myself, I don't agree with Israel on everything. I believe they've done some horrendous things in the past, and I believe sometimes they rightly do deserve criticism. But let me be clear on this. When it comes to the topic of Palestine and Iran, I stand with Israel wholeheartedly, and I stand with every other country which wants to see the Iran regime obliterated so the Iranian people can finally be free, because it is a dictatorship, it's a regime, it's disgraceful, it's disgusting. Half of their money all goes onto war. I don't want war. I want world peace. But we will not have world peace in the Middle East or in the Western civilization unless we obliterate this regime, because they are funding terrorism organizations around the world. So let me be clear once more. I stand by my tweet, and we should intervene with either sanctions or military action in terms of missiles, or if it means getting, a destroyer on the shores, blow them to pieces, blow their military points to pieces. But I will not, in my opinion, agree with sending British soldiers to die. That's all I'm going to say.
I mean, I don't want to engage in a debate with you on this, Charlie, because it's an interview
Do it.
about you,
It is the
not
verdict.
not Iran and Israel. But one argument would be, you mentioned blowing Iran up, and then you also went on to say world peace. Surely, just like, people would say now people disagree with Keir Starmer's leadership, but that doesn't mean we label the whole of British population as supporting Keir Starmer and covering up grooming gangs and all sorts. So
No, no, no,
surely
no.
all
Wait a minute. Wait a
people
minute.
in
Wait a
our
minute. Wait a minute.
all
No, no,
people,
no. No, no, no. But no, because I just want to respond to that. I am not advocating for the death of civilians. I'm heavily against
but you want
the
to
death.
blow
One
Iran
minute.
up.
No, 1 minute. 1 minute. I am on about blowing up, military points, you know, strategic military assets from Iran. So blowing them up. I'm not on about killing, civilians. If it means killing their leaders or their scientists or their soldiers in some sense, then yes, but not civilians. It is a regime. It needs to be ended. And trust me, the Iranian people need to step up. Otherwise, unfortunately, I don't think that the Middle East will be much safer for much longer, and it's already not a safe place.
I mean, exactly. The Middle East isn't one of the most safest places.
Exactly because of
Um,
Iran, because of Iran,
how
because these
how
terrorist organizations.
okay. I don't want to get into a debate on that. I'm sure we could. However, um, you didn't really respond to the replies to your tweets. Do you want to go ahead and do that? And because I'm sure you've got something to say about being called a young fat virgin or a fatty.
Trust me, if I replied to every single tweet I responded, I would be here all day. So no, I don't want to reply to them. I've just given my response to them, and at the end of the day, all you did was you boost my engagement on my post, so more people can see my beliefs and my views. I may have lost a few followers, but I don't really care. And also, one last thing on this topic is the whole of us a fat little version. Well, I find it funny, so keep commenting it, please, and all of you little neo-Nazi groups, and I will call it what it is, calling me a dirty Jew. Well, I'm not Jewish, am I? I just believe that the Iran regime needs to be obliterated.
Yeah, I think young and virgin shouldn't be in the same sentence, but we'll leave that there. Let's move on, Charlie. You began your political career well, you've said previously that you started your political career at the age 11, starting off
No, well,
as,
well, well, well. I want to clear the record. I wasn't out canvassing at the age of 11. I started to develop a few opinions at the age of 11, speak up a bit. Properly, I would say 13, the start of 13, so December 20, whenever, that's when it started now. But yes, I do see where you're coming from, Jack. Carry on.
thank you. So you started as a Corbynite, didn't you, Charlie? And um, well, you started as a Corbynite, which probably meant you support Labour. You supported Labour, forgive me. And I think that's quite interesting because you were growing up in Ashfield, which has a really large presence of the Ashfield Independents, who a lot would consider left wing, but we'll come
Well,
back to that. Let's.
no. I would like to respond to that because the Ashfield Independents are very, very new, in the sense of well, they're not new, but I know Jason Zadodny. I used to talk to him when I was in the youth parliament, the council leader and stuff. To be honest, they're all just a bunch of weirdos who don't have a political home. They are a decent force in Ashfield. Well, they used to be until May the 1st, and they've now been obliterated on the county council, and they will be obliterated when it comes to the district council elections, and trust me, they will. And Reform will win by a landslide on them councils, but I won't call them left wing. I would just call them weirdos because they are. If you look at all the past convictions combined, Jesus Christ, it's there becomes a point, and the whole Jeremy Corbyn thing. I think it were a phase for like a few weeks or months, and it was because I had a very, very left wokey English teacher who kind of indoctrinated me, and then scroll
Yeah,
on scroll on TikTok and a few Nigel Farage edits, and I'm a right winger. So it all
yeah,
happens so fast.
yeah. Um, sorry about that. Yeah. So you did support Labour, you supported Corbyn. Now, then you went on to support the Conservatives, then Reform UK,
I wouldn't
and
say
then
I
this is
supported the Conservatives.
well, you
I
supported Lee
supported Lee
Anderson, who was a
Anderson.
Conservative.
Yeah, I would say I supported the Conservatives.
You then supported Tommy Robinson, and at the same time UKIP because you said in a big speech in front of a crowd of people that Reform UK were a fake party and that you could see a UKIP flag. They were the real party. After saying that you rejoined Reform UK and now you have left, and that was over the row with Rupert Lowe, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You said a couple of days ago, or it might have been a week or two ago, that two political parties approached you for an endorsement, and I know you don't want to get into that. But that is quite a record, isn't it? We talk about Lee Anderson going from supporting Labour to the Conservatives now to Reform. You've gone one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Seven times you've changed allegiances.
No,
Um,
no, no. Let's be very, very clear here, Jack. I've only ever held a party membership of one political party. I've only ever endorsed, and let's be clear here, endorsement. I've only ever endorsed the Conservatives. No. Sorry, I've only ever endorsed Reform UK and UKIP. That's something I want to be very, very clear on. And the other two parties, I haven't joined them. I'm good friends with people inside that party, but I haven't joined them. Big difference, Jack. Big difference.
there is a big difference, but you're supporting the party policies, and it doesn't matter whether you spend.
How am I supporting the party
I
policies?
think it's a £7 membership for the Conservatives. So you giving £7 to the Conservatives, it
No,
doesn't
I've not.
mean a
I've
lot.
no,
But
no, no, no.
we'll
Let's
move
be
on.
clear.
No, we'll
I've
move
never
on
held
from
a
that, Charlie.
conservative.
No, there's no
What?
point in arguing about it. It's an
No, there is
interview.
because I've never held a
No,
conservative party membership.
and I've never claimed that you do hold a Conservative Party membership. But
Yes,
if you
but you
did,
just did.
no, I didn't know because if you listen back to it, and you can once the interview's
You.
published. If you listen back to it, it doesn't make a difference whether you gave £7 or £12 or £15 to a political party. You still sympathise with their politics and spoke to politicians such as Lee Anderson, who were in the party and who was deputy chairman. So it doesn't make a difference whether you had a party membership or not. Whether you endorsed them on Twitter with followers or whatever, you still looked at their policies and said, you know what? Out of all the parties, I agree with
No,
them. And
no,
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 Charlie, you can disagree as much as you want. And you
no.
know
I
what?
supported Lee Anderson. I
Other
supported
people
Lee
would shut
Anderson,
you
not the
down, and I'm not
Conservative.
going to do that. Let's move on to a different point because this is just argumentative. Okay, so you endorsed Tommy Robinson, and Tommy did a lot. He did a video about you saying that you're an amazing person, and during your row with your school, he said you were also an amazing young man considering your age. Do you still support Tommy Robinson?
What kind of question's that? I mean, Tommy Robinson's a great, he's done great work surrounding, the grooming gangs. It's just bizarre how someone can ask me that question. I wouldn't
Do you
stand
still
on.
support Tommy Robinson? Yes or no?
No, well, of course I support Tommy Robinson.
So
Otherwise, I
yes.
wouldn't.
Okay. Okay.
No,
No,
otherwise I
that's
wouldn't
fine.
have. No, no. See, because you can't just ask that question. I mean, because
Well, I
this
can
is where
because
we
it's my
get into a
show.
bit of an issue here. What?
Well, I can because it's my show. It's just like you could ask me a question if I went onto your show.
Go on then.
Okay. Okay. No, no. Well, that I just wanted to clarify on that point because you have been quite quiet about Tommy Robinson recently, and I've never said I supported Tommy Robinson. I've never publicly said anything about Tommy Robinson, and that's got nothing to do with this now. So, I asked you that question knowing you'd probably say yes. I'm not trying to doubt that you do support Tommy
Oh,
Robinson or that
oh
you
yeah.
think he's a good person. You stood on a stage that was, it was a day after he got sent to prison, and I remember that because, funnily enough, I was at a youth parliament event. So, yeah, but let's get on to that then. So on that stage, you called Reform a fake party, and then on the 4th of January this year, you joined them, didn't you?
You know what? If you watch the video, you would understand my reasoning. So yeah, you know yourself. There's no line. I did join the party. So yeah, simple.
So you did join the party after calling them fake. And you said I remember watching your video, and you said that was um because there was momentum, and they of course there was a momentum. There was, I think they were on about 100,000 members at the time you posted it. It was 170. We've now got nearly 230 members, and it's
We,
just not.
we've now got
We,
100,
we,
200.
we. Oh yes, that's an
Oh,
exclusive. I'm owned by Reform UK.
oh yeah,
Reform
knew it.
UK has 230. Oh, it's crazy, Charlie, isn't it? I knew my secrets.
Oh, I do
So,
know your secrets if you want me to reveal them.
absolutely right. Yeah, I think we are going off track a bit here. But but with you joining Reform UK, you said that you were still going to talk to people like Tommy Robinson and UKIP and the SDP and whatnot, and that's well within your rights. I'm sure there's plenty of people in Reform UK still doing the same thing, and you only got kicked out because you were so vocal about it. And could you please like outline why you have so much anger with Reform UK? And it's my understanding that you've left Reform UK. Can I just clarify that?
Yes, I did leave
Yes.
Reform UK because I believe, independent journalists and political activists are best made independent minded. So yeah, I did
Well,
leave.
you said no, because you said during that video when you announced that you've joined Reform UK that you'd still be an independent journalist. So you are backtracking
Yes.
a bit there, aren't you?
No, I'm not.
Um, no, no, okay, that's completely your verdict. Um, so why did you rejoin Reform UK?
Well, it was very, very, very clear the reason why I rejoined Reform UK was because in life you have to look at the better of the worst, and Reform UK are the best option. And I will stand by this statement now. Reform UK are the best option which can actually get elected. So I did join to offer an endorsement, as some would say, and just to say, you know what, I appreciate what you're doing to the members because I mean I love the members of Reform UK. I think they're great people. It's the leadership which is crooked and corrupt, which I can't stand. And trust me, I know very first hand about that leadership. Um, but the point I'm trying to say is I did join Reform UK to say, you know what, I stand with the members, not the party. The members because they are the best of a bad bunch.
So what about UKIP or the SDP or even Britain First?
What about
Would you
them?
not support them? Well, would you not support them? Because a lot of people would say that they align more to your views, whether they'd get elected to government or not. But surely that's not the whole reason of a political party. Surely that's it's a good, of course it's a good idea, but political parties can be used for different reasons. I don't think anyone thinks that Nick Tenkoni is going to be the next prime minister. But
And he
if you
won't. And he won't be the
Exactly,
next prime
exactly. And
minister.
that's why I'm saying a lot of people said they wouldn't. But you joining Reform UK at that time when there was such a growth, it does think, oh, was he looking for something? Was he looking to say, actually, if Reform did get into power, you could say you supported them? And that's what a lot of
No,
people would say. And
no,
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. If
no,
you can let
because
me
you
finish,
know
because if I
me
came
full
on your
well.
show and acted like this and interrupted you, you'd have a problem. But I've been quite lenient.
I'm
Um,
answering the questions.
well, you are answering my questions, Charlie, but
Exactly.
it's a
So let me
lot.
answer the
It's repetitive.
question.
Let's move away from this subject.
No, I'm
Let's
not
move
moving
away
away
from it
from
now,
it
because
until I tell.
the police visited your house, didn't they, Charlie?
Oh, here
Because
we
apparently
go.
you. And I'm not trying to justify the actions of the police. Absolutely not. You posted it on X, and I listened to the 19-minute clip, and the police officers who were there hadn't got a clue. You were apparently involved in far right activities. Now, far right, isn't that a term we hear too often when the government disagrees with you? Does that make you a far right thug, Charlie? No, it absolutely doesn't. I think it makes you, to use what you said in that speech, a concerned citizen. But why do you think that the police visited your house? And I think you will recall a certain tweet about you possibly being inevitable West. But why do you think the police came to your house? And do you think they should be more educated when they go to people's house demanding and saying such outrageous claims?
I I don't know the thinking of the police. I don't know what was going on. I don't know how it was orchestrated. But I do know things was being planned beforehand by individuals. But
How do you know that? How
you
do
know,
you know
one
that?
minute Jack. I was going to get onto that because it was the very big known thing in certain organisations. You know,
Such
regarding
as,
me about
such
pardon.
as, such
No,
as.
I'm finishing the statement. And to be fair, you know that police visit, and I've said this in many interviews already. It was a moment which was quite scary. As I mean, as you can imagine, because they didn't. Because let me just be clear, they didn't just come while my parents was there. My parents was out, and I got him back from school, and I was just sat in my bed. And when you've got multiple police officers nearly kicking down your door, you know, with flashlights and stuff, it is a very scary experience. And you know, but the you know what I'm trying to say is since that police visit, I have moved myself away from, you know, tweeting stuff which I don't really need to be tweeting, tweeting things which are a bit edgy and which can lead to a visit. And I'm not on about Tommy Robinson before you ask, because my association to Tommy Robinson was not
Fair.
illegal. Um, I
I've
believe I
never
did
said it
make.
was.
Yes, I know, but I'm just getting it clear. But I know you was going to go to that later on. But what I'm trying to say is, I was making some edgy, uneducated tweets, and now I've reformed my act.
That's interesting. So of course, we see it a lot, don't we? The police being weaponized because of tweets you've made. Um, and if it was on any other platform, you'd probably be cancelled. But because it's X and it's so open and it's owned by someone who's actually got brain cells, you can do stuff like that. And I don't think you should be visited by the police because of it. One last thing on Reform UK, and then we'll move on to
Hmm.
more recent stuff with you. Nicholas Lizak, he is that his name? Nicholas Lizak? I don't know if I'm saying his
Nicholas
last name right.
Lizak, yes, yes.
He became quite popular, didn't he? He was doing a lot of videos on TikTok about Reform UK, and you were, considered very close at one point. I think there was one claim that you would together start a Reform UK youth momentum, whether that was official or not. Um, but you know, on I think it was last year. You called him a posh twat. What changed?
Politics, simple.
Politics changed. Yeah, but a lot of people say just because your politics change doesn't mean you should go around calling a perfectly, reasonable person who I actually
1 minute,
quite
one
like a
minute,
posh twat.
1 minute. Okay, fine. I'll respond to that. Jack, for the sake of other people, I won't continue to respond to that statement. But if you knew the full truth and nothing but the truth, you would know that that statement was not meant at all.
So you don't think he's a posh twat then?
I'm not answering, which is well within my right. I'm not answering your question.
Okay, I don't know what the point of coming on an interview is if you're not going to ask any questions.
Answer.
Okay, my bad, I got my words wrong. So you might think he's a posh twat. You might think that he's a bad person. You might be best friends. You might not think he's a posh twat. Um, that's completely up to you. But the fact that you're not saying whether he is or not is concerning. Um, you've said that Tommy Robinson was a civil prisoner. And a lot of people agree. I agree that Tommy Robinson is a civil prisoner. Um, do you think that parties like Reform UK should be endorsing Tommy Robinson? Do you think that, Reform would go further, or do you think Tommy wouldn't actually allow it, which I think would happen? But what do you think?
No, no, it would be political suicide for Reform UK for them to outright endorse Tommy Robinson. But that doesn't mean that Nigel Farage needs to be sitting at a desk every 10 minutes saying that Tommy Robinson's bad. Just don't talk about the man, for Christ's sakes, it's that easy.
I think that's a really good point.
Simple.
So I mentioned before that you posted a tweet about two political parties which asked for your endorsement. You deleted that post and you said that was out of respect for them. Are you willing to disclose those two parties? It's perfectly fine if not, but it would be very interesting to see which parties were. And you said in your tweet that they approached you. You didn't go to them, they approached you and asked for your endorsement, which, so first of all, if you're willing to say who these two parties were, could you name them? And why do you think they came to you asking for your endorsement?
So it wasn't directly the like a party leader or like a party like account. It was branches from the party who had said, we've seen your content. Do you reckon you could do a little like retweet and a bit of an endorsement for us? And I said to myself, you know what? I've known you for a bit of time because I do know these two people for a bit of time, and I know, and I'm good friends with the people inside this party, these two parties, might I add. And I said, if I were to endorse you, would you publicly say, he's joined us as a member or something? And they said to me, well, it would look bad for us if we actually, announced you as a member. And I went, well, to be honest, I don't really want to be endorsing parties anyway, as I want to be independent. So then they said, okay, that's that. And then they said, don't speak about this publicly. Obviously I did a tweet, and this was over a course of a month. But yeah, no, I won't name the parties. You'll probably know they're not open major. They are quite like between the range of 5,000 members each, which you can probably work out who both them parties are.
Well, I
But yeah,
can't
no,
imagine there'd be a left wing party as well, Charlie, so it does sum it down.
you'll be surprised. The Communist Party of Britain fancy me after all.
Uh, so that's fine, you don't have to name them. I understand
I
why
know I
you're
don't.
not. Y- okay. You recently appeared on GB News, talking
Yeah,
about your an incident. Well, not an incident. That's the wrong word. Something which occurred with vaping, and your
yeah,
I'm trying to word this right, but basically, you vaped in the past, and as a result of that, you had some medical issues, blah blah blah.
yeah.
And then obviously within that interview, you went on to talk about the grooming gangs, which I'd like to mention. But I think that obviously we've talked a lot about your politics and not your personal life. How did that impact you, and did you ever think that would hinder your political um, progression and journey?
Vaping's bad. Simple. I would rather smoke cigarettes than vape, and I won't go any further on that. But all I will say is vaping is bad. Should we ban it? No. Should we ban disposables? Yes, because they are Chinese lithium batteries after all. And unless you want to be sucking on one of them, you're mental and need to be sent to an asylum place, not hotel. But yes, the point I'm trying to say is I was young, I was vulnerable, and I was naive, and I thought to myself, I'll vape. And then when you have one go, you have a second go, and a third, and next thing you know, you're a full blown addict. So yeah, simple.
And did you ever think that would stop you in your political career? If people found out at the time, especially if you were in the youth parliament and advocating for young people to follow the law, although it's a very little, you know what I mean. Do you think that would, have possibly stopped you? I doubt it would, but do you think? Yeah, did you ever think, if people found out that I vaped and as a result of it, I've got life, you know, something which will be with me for life? Do you think that would have changed anything?
No.
No. Okay. No, no. It's just good to clarify. So you've appeared on, GB News twice. I think we've mentioned your GB News appearances, Talk and Sky. And do you think um your appearances on those platforms were were because of, I don't know how to put this, were because of what you were doing and how outspoken what you said at start, how outspoken you were and your opinions, because you mentioned you had tweets which necessarily were at times uneducated, maybe, if that's the
Yeah.
right term of language. Do you think if you weren't so radical or passionate or outspoken or strong, you wouldn't have received those endorsements, and not just mainstream platforms? You've been on the Urban Scoop with Sammy Woodhouse a couple of times and done interviews. Uh, did you go on Chris Hinton's? Is the Curtis Hinton? Sorry, and there's a couple more. But do you think if you weren't so outspoken, you would have achieved that?
I mean, in life, you've got to stand out, and you've got to make these. You've got to do these things to make yourself known and clear. And I have done stunts, and I will call them stunts to get my name out there. And it's worked, but I've always been genuine to myself. I've never put a tweet up because it's something I know which is going to get views, which I have done in sometimes. But deep down, I will. I do believe in the stuff I post.
Yeah, that's fair enough. You said that you made mistakes when you were doing an interview with Curtis Hinton. What mistakes did you make
When was this?
when you did an interview with Curtis Hinton?
Oh, for in focus when I returned to social media.
Hmm.
The police visit.
That was a mistake on your behalf.
Well, the police came to visit me because of for actions I did. So yes, of course, it was a mistake.
Okay, and you regret it now, and you wish you had held yourself back
In regards to
in regards to the post which got the police to your house or the activities which you did.
the whole reason they actually had grounds to come to my house was over an active murder investigation, which I'd commented on. That's they only legally had grounds to visit me on that post. So yes, it was a mistake for me to tweet that. Everything else just a bit foolish. Mistake,
They did
yes,
mention
but
they did mention far right activities, so perhaps
yes,
they
but
had all.
might I add, I broke no laws. They only managed to get in my house because I'd made a tweet about an active murder investigation, which I believe it's inappropriate for us to comment on here.
Yeah,
So yeah, simple.
absolutely. Okay, I think we need to close it. So I'll ask one more question. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
To be honest, sometimes I don't know where I see myself when I wake up in the morning.
Okay, and where do you see the future of the Simpson Report going?
Mainstream.
Mainstream. That's definitely, I think the independent media are rising. If you were prime minister for one day, what would you do?
Well, to be honest, there's not much you can do in one day because you need to pass laws in Parliament. It's very complicated. To be honest, I would probably just sit back and enjoy all the luxuries for 24 hours.
Okay, so let's pretend Parliament wasn't there. You didn't have to pass laws. If there was one thing, that one policy, one change in the way the country went, if there was one thing that you could enact, whether that be over the space of a year or, if you were prime minister, Charlie Simpson MP, whatever, blah blah blah. If there was one thing you could do for our country, what would it be?
It's very complicated. That question is because there's a lot of things I would do. It's very complicated. I think I would look at imposing measures to tackle homelessness first. Of course, if I was the prime minister for 5 years, on my right, we're going to have to end this interview because my devices are all getting overheated. It says. but I'll just finish the question quickly. Obviously, if I had like 5 years, I would possibly, release a manifesto, which I am going to be releasing my own little manifesto in the time to come, so people know what I stand for. So yeah, no, I would tackle homelessness. I would close the borders. I would get the GDP growing. I would get the economy growing. I would do all sorts of stuff. I just wouldn't have the time to do it in one day.
Absolutely. Okay, well, you mentioned you have to go now, Charlie, so thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
joining. People can scan the QR code up there if they want to support you. Thank you very much
That says
for
follow Jack.
being. Uh, oh, does it? My bad. Well, I'll whack it on now. But yeah, thank you very much for joining today. This is my first interview. I think it's gone relatively well. There's been times where it's been fiery, but it's been certainly good and it's been great to talk to you, and I'm sure we'll
Yeah.
have you on in the future. Okay.
Right. Absolutely great.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Take care.
Bye bye.
And there we have it, our first interview on the show. Apologies if you heard anything in the background there, people coming in and out. We don't have a professional studio. I'm sat at my kitchen. So if you heard the fridge opening or whatever, I do apologise. But that's the thing with independent media. Charlie was very interesting there. It's been really good to get Charlie on, actually. And he has supported me throughout my I'm not going to say political career, but throughout my time in politics, he's been a really a strong figure and someone who I have looked up to at times, and sometimes who I thought, you know what, you could have done that a bit differently. But definitely, Charlie is an interesting person. He's the same age as me, um, and yeah, he is a really good person to talk to. I think we learned a lot from that interview there. And yeah, that's all I've got to say. You can obviously look at our social medias and watch back this interview. It'll be going on our YouTube and X accounts, uploading clips. Please do feel free to go and follow Charlie, my account, which is at Jack P. James, and the Verdict News, which is really new actually. This is our first interview and it's gone pretty well considering. So yeah, that's all for today. We'll get some fantastic guests on soon. And if you are interested in coming on and having your say, having your verdict, please drop me or the Verdict News account a message. I hope you all have a lovely week and I hope you've enjoyed this and taken something away from it. Thank you very much.